Hey guys, welcome back to My Sixth Sense. This is your weekly podcast on Sundays. We're back at it, third week in a row. Kind of proud of myself for sticking to a schedule here. We've got an interesting guest today. If you guys aren't watching but listening, Matt is here. Scott introduced me to Matt just a minute ago, so we're gonna see where this conversations go. Matt, did you want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name's Matt. I live in Virginia. I'm a small business owner. And because we're talking politics today, straight, white male, cisgender, all that stuff, left-leaning, I'd like to say compassionate and understanding from lots of perspectives. But sometimes, Scott will attest to this, when I'm in Facebook murder mode, I will speak out of turn plenty of times. But I also know how to use a little bit of tact here and there. So hopefully we can do that today, and I'm happy to be here.
Dude, Matt, we're really appreciative. And Scott, bad man, Mohawk man, back with a fresh cut. How are you, dude? How you been?
I'm good, bro. As you can see, there's crap all around me. I'm getting settled back into my house. And also, I've known Matt for like 15 years or something? It's been a long time, dude.
Yep.
We worked at Apple together like in 2008 or something. I remember like talking about like Obama's campaign with you or something, you know, like that's how long I've known you. So.
Oh yeah. I still got my, just to show everybody,
nice.
Obama bobblehead.
Awesome.
Nice, dude. It's so insane that you just got back into your house, Scott. It's so insane.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm so happy that you're back. It's so nice to see like a nice unfuzzy face with like not like an AirPod sounding like I did before we got on.
Or in the prison room. Remember how like
the prison room
was right behind me and the other ones looked like I was in jail.
It was Thanksgiving, or what was it? It was
they were like, you'll be in by Thanksgiving, and then it was
Christmas,
and you'll be
it was New Year's.
And anyway, I got back in on February 3rd, so that was close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's a birthday present for me. Thank God. So what did we didn't really have any. We just kind of got on. I just hopped on, and here we are. What are we talking about this week, Scott?
I think today we should talk about like what's going on in Ukraine and Zelensky, and the press conference yesterday, of course. I think this is one of those topics where I think Matt and I are yin and yang, which is totally fine. But yeah, I think Ukraine's a good topic, and then where it goes from there. Yeah, anything else crazy happened this week, Matt? Is anything on top of mind for you that happened this week?
I don't know. I mean, I don't follow the truths that are posted, but most of the week was the press conference.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably say that. And you know, honestly, man, like just kind of getting to that point is there's just too much all at once to just kind of like this Ukraine thing's so large, and it's something that I have been watching for so long that it is. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I'm very excited about possibly us not financing this anymore. As just a guy who's a non-interventionalist, it makes me happy. Again, Trump is just flooding the zone with a whole bunch of stuff. So I think the press conference probably is where we can stay, unless you guys want to go other places, because it just gets too busy, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, back to that. There was Vladimir Zelensky shows up to the Oval Office. I guess we'll start there. That's where the book starts. I mean, the book doesn't start there, but for this conversation, it does. And is kind of just like told like we need peace, and this is how we're going to do it. And he didn't like that. And then, however you feel about Trump, maybe he did speak a little childishly sometimes. That's the way he is, but it was not a cordial back and forth. It didn't end cordially. I want to hear, Matt, what your thoughts on, did you watch the whole thing, and then your thoughts on
God, no, I didn't watch the whole thing. I think first and foremost, a meeting like this between any two heads of state should have been done behind closed doors. It shouldn't have been done out in the open like this. But the reason they did it out in the open is because they wanted to do it out in the open. Trump's party wanted to tie Volodymyr's hands, I think, to force the mineral deal and not give any assurances. So basically, to go into a little more detail about Trump, I think we can all agree that Trump thinks that he's a great deal maker. That's his whole spiel, the art of the deal. He's not a great deal maker. He just isn't. We talked about the tariffs just recently when he was going to throw tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and then Mexico and Canada said, "Wait a minute, how about we give you the same exact deal you already had?" And he said, "Okay, sure." So he's not a good deal maker. But most of his deals in his business life are just not paying his people. You know, he wouldn't pay his contractors. That's how he has a good deal. So anytime he's on the hook for money, he doesn't like that, and he's going to try to get out of it as best he can. Call it good business sense if you want. You can if you want. I feel it's dishonest. So in this case, the American people are on the hook for some value for Ukraine's ongoing war. And I think I'm now veering off into Ukraine in general.
I
don't know if it's necessary, but I think that from Ukraine's perspective, they would falter, I think, if America wasn't helping foot some of this bill. But from America's perspective about footing the bill, honestly, I don't have a problem with it, because most of the money that's appropriated was like, here's all of our old munitions and here's all our old guns. We're going to recycle them anyway. We already made them, and really what we're doing with this money is we're making new stuff for ourselves, which we would have had to do anyway. That's a large chunk of what was given to Ukraine, and I have no problem with some mineral rights or something, but I'm sure whatever it is Trump was asking for was too much, and then what did he give in return? It's becoming increasingly obvious to everyone except the ones that refuse to acknowledge that Trump is working for Russia. Whether he thinks he is.
Okay, well, I got to stop you there. I have
you
to
stop me there.
Okay, yep. That's where we're going to borderline. That's called insanity. So we'll back to Ukraine.
All right,
okay.
All right, yeah. I'm ready.
He is not working. I'm not a Trump guy. Scott will tell you that I'm not a Trump guy. There is no evidence. Not only is there no evidence, there is more. Yes, thank you. There is more evidence to point that he is not an agent. The Nunes memo, which I can forward you, which I've read, details that he does not and never had any communication with Russia. So I guess that aside.
Okay, so the former KGB guys, you're saying they're full of shit, and that's okay.
So, well, hold on. So now we believe Russian propaganda?
No, it's no
former KGB. We believe them now.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So,
all right.
If
he is a Russian puppet, what's next?
What's the outcome?
What's the outcome? What's the goal?
Was it this morning or yesterday that our military leader told our cyber security guys to stop planning ops against Russia, stop doing counter cyber against Russia? That just happened. Why?
Let me step in real quick, just because I wanted to, and also I want to kind of play Switzerland here and just say let's not talk over each other. And
oh my gosh,
hold on. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be Switzerland here. But I just wanted to bring up a couple of things in response to what you had said, Matt. The first one was about the Mexico and Canada deal. Just points of clarification, because there was a move during Biden's presidency to place, I believe it was 10,000 soldiers on Mexico's southern border. So there was a move that, and this is in response to the Trump's tariffs got him the same deal he had under Biden. Just a point of clarification: under Biden, those troops were on Mexico's southern border. Under Trump, with the threat of tariffs, those troops were moved to Mexico's northern border, to the border between United States and Mexico. I'm not trying to, you can look all this up too. People listening, if you want, do your own research or whatever. But that was the deal that Trump did broker with those tariffs and pausing them. So while I can see those are, in theory, they're very similar, and it can be perceived as they are the same deal. From my perspective, those are drastically different things, because one's keeping people from coming into Mexico while a lot of these migrants are coming from South America. The strategy involved, yes, it's a very small border at Mexico's southern border, but we did broker that change if we're taking the side of Trump being the deal maker guy or whatever. And then Canada was pressured into appropriating, I believe, another $1 billion to stop the flow of fentanyl and the flow of illegal migrants. Now they were already doing some of this. That's absolutely true. They were spending their own money and keeping the northern border secure. However, just a point of clarification: there was an additional $1 billion appropriated to heighten that as a result of those tariffs. I'm not gonna die on the hill, so if you wanna retort, just give me one more second too, because I pulled up the U.S. direct financial support for Ukraine. This is Congressional Research Service. This is from crsreports.congress.gov. As of January 25th, Congress has appropriated a total of nearly $174.2 billion from fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2024 in a supplemental appropriations in response to Russia's war against Ukraine. And I just want to point that out because Trump keeps saying 350. It's, from all intents and purposes, around 174, not 350. But it then goes on to say, of that amount, Congress appropriated $37.8 billion for the Economic Support Fund and Assistance for Europe, Eurasia, and Central Asia accounts, directing that a portion of such assistance be made available for direct financial support for the government of Ukraine's central budget. So, the point that we gave them a bunch of old military equipment, it is valid. It's a valid point to make. But 37 billion of that is going towards paying Ukrainian pensions, paying for financial assistance, paying for their equivalents of FEMA and disaster relief programs. Obviously, you'll probably retort that we should be doing that. Personally, this is where what's that?
And why should we be doing that?
Well, I personally take contention with that. I take contention with that because the nature of the Ukrainian war is, we could say we have some sort of strategic objective by, and Darren's over shaking his head. We could say they're an ally. We could say we have a strategic objective. I think a lot of that is predicated upon a particular worldview that I just fundamentally disagree with. Sure, we could be providing financial support for this conflict, but I think that this money isn't being well spent because it's being laundered. It's being there's massive amounts of fraud. There's massive amounts of mismanagement of these funds that's going on. And we are already broke, we're way out of money. We provide way more financial assistance to NATO than our European allies do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause right here because it looks like you got something you want to say. I just wanted to clarify that it's not all old weapons and munitions. There's a huge chunk of it that's going to paying people's pensions and stuff when I've been out of my house for 4 months. You know what I'm saying? FEMA didn't even give me $700. I applied for it and they're like, nah, nope, sorry. So when I see things like that,
it's awful.
I'm kind of like, sorry, Ukrainians, anyway, I digress. I'm gonna let you talk.
So you're saying because FEMA didn't give you $700, Ukraine doesn't deserve their $700, and that's 100%. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to say. Okay. The main reasoning, I think, for keeping the lights on in Ukraine and paying the pensions and all that is because they're out so much tax revenue because half the country is destroyed. And now, is that our job to fix? You're saying no, and that's okay. You can say that. I think, I mean, it'll come back down to Russia. Should Russia be stopped in its conquest for more and more and more of its USSR land back? Should they be stopped?
Should Israel have to give some of the land back?
Well, hold on. Let's not what about yet.
Israel? We could talk about that too.
What I'm...
Hold on, Darren. You cut out, bro.
What I'm trying to say is this could have been... The whole thing could have been prevented, in all honesty, about 5 or 6 or 7 or even 8 times, even since like the Berlin Wall fell. But in the last, like, since what, 94, they gave up their weapons in 94, gave all their nukes back to Russia.
With security guarantees that were out the window.
So our security guarantee to Gorbachev when the wall fell was we wouldn't move NATO any farther east than Berlin.
The argument that's made, just to steelman the opposing argument, is that was supposedly for the USSR. It's no longer the USSR. I think that argument is bullshit, you know, because that's the perspective that people will take is, well, we made that guarantee to the USSR.
Right.
No longer
and it's not,
the USSR.
And the other one is it's like a handshake, right? But the thing is, there were plenty of like Kennedy withdrew the weapons where they Turkey and also Russia withdrew them from Cuba on a handshake. So, I mean, again, yeah, it's a little tricky, but I'm just saying these things could have been prevented. And our country, every time I try not to turn on the news, but every time I read the news, like I'm on ground news a lot, trying to read like left and right, just so I'm getting the both. But it's like there are so many. We shouldn't have one hungry child here. We shouldn't have one homeless veteran here. We shouldn't have Scott. Yeah. Scott should get his money. They should all get more than 7. Yeah. If we did not send $250 billion to Ukraine, we could give everyone in California who was evacuated, not even lost their home, evacuated $500,000. So my thing is, unfortunately, a couple of administrations decided that Ukraine was. I mean, listen. Putin has let us know for a long time that Ukraine was that was it. That was their red line. We know that based upon a memo released from then Ambassador Bill Burns, the ex-CIA chief, to Condoleezza Rice, called "Niet means Niet," saying, "Listen, this is not a good idea. Like Ukraine cannot be let into NATO at all. This is their red line. And if we do, then they might not have a choice. Like they're saying, like that's it." And then Germany and even the UK. We're like, do not do this. Like, we are not ready for them to be you're over here on an island. We're over here. Like, we're closer to this whole thing. Please don't do this. Mm-hmm. And in 2008 in Bucharest, we get up and go, we're planning on putting Georgia and Ukraine into NATO. It's like another 2 border countries of Russia. Mm-hmm. I know that this is kind of like off topic. I'm just trying to like work my way back to it, but I just think we don't owe. Unfortunately, we don't have the money. Scott is right. We are completely broke. And if we have money for this, we need to take care of our own folks. I'm not a handouts guy, but I have to be realistic. Like there's so many people here that need help. So many people. I mean, I pay $600 a week for daycare. I don't qualify for assistance, but I pay taxes, right? And this money that's just being printed and sending this over to, God knows where, our stockpiles, most generals will tell you, or if you listen to any of their briefings, that we just don't have any weapons right now. We have to make them. We've depleted something like 87% of our stockpile, whether they're old or new or whatever, they go boom. Right. So, it's tough for me to even think about like giving money to anybody else right now. And I'm not trying to be one of those like isolationists. I think if we can help, like this USAID thing, again, I will just be really quick here. I think we should be, if we can help, why not? We can't right now. And to think that Ukraine has any shot at defeating Russia is, it is nonsense. And that's all. I guess that's what I'm getting back at.
The original question was whether or not we should stop the spread of Russia into the former USSR states. Just
Yeah.
clarifying.
Sure. I bet at the same time, if those states want to take a vote and come back to Russia, then why not?
Well, okay. Let me retort then with the point you just made to Matt, because
Sure.
it's specific to Crimea, because Crimea is kind of the flashpoint of this conflict. If we're talking about 2014 and all the way back to 2008, there is a significant portion of ethnic Russians in Crimea, like something like 90+% of people there are Russian speaking. As you pointed out, the Ukraine is obviously a former state within the USSR, so there are a lot of like cultural ties back to Russia. Is there a reality in which? Okay, so first let me say, I think that yes, we should be using geopolitical mechanisms to stop Russia from annexing the globe. I don't want to speak Russian, and more than that, I don't agree with the Russian ethic of what the world looks like. Right? I do not like communists. I really don't like them. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the banning of perspectives and throwing people in jail for who they are or who they love or
dissenting opinions.
Let's put a tack in that, because that's happening here now.
Sure. Okay.
Or about to be.
Let's keep that on. Okay.
Let's definitely put a pin in that, because we can talk about COVID too.
Let's do that the next episode. How does that sound?
All right. Okay.
I'm down. I'm so down. So in Matt, I just want to say, if that happens, like I said on Facebook, I will be out there with you, brother. Like I will. I promise you. It's in record
to start
now.
Arresting trans people. We'll see.
Sure. I'm out there with you. But with that being said,
it'll be a made up law. Someone's going to say you're not allowed to do this because you're a guy. You were always a guy, and then the trans woman's going to say, "What the hell am I supposed to do?" And then they're going to arrest her because of a law that made it legal. But we'll say again, in Nazi Germany, I know Nazis. It was legal to do all the things that they did because they made it legal.
Well, legality is never an argument that I will stand behind.
We're talking morality. We're talking ethical.
Yeah, you can't, because it's all made up.
Okay.
Yeah. Because slavery was.
Malleman say.
I don't care what the law says. Okay, I care about what is like morally and ethically correct, as close as I can get, because we're all flawed people, and to stand on morality it will make you a hypocrite. But with that being said, I'm not going to go, well, the law says, that's how they justified slavery in this country. Again, I'm not for it. So, but with that being said, I do think we should stop the flow or the spread of Russia in an imperial sense. It's just how we do that is where I think there is a disagreement. I am, I hate saying, oh, well, I'm a this. I think that economics and mercantilism, if you will, that's a bad word nowadays, but I think that economics is how we do this, not with guns and bullets. That happens last. Yes, I understand Russia invaded, but we can't talk about the Russian invasion without a set of conversations about kind of, I don't want to both sides it, but to just say it happened in a vacuum, I think is disingenuous. So that's my response to, should we stop the spread of Russia? Yeah, absolutely. The thing I was asking, though, I just we can put a pin in that too. The thing I was asking was if I want to say it's kind of interesting that I'm the middle guy right now. I don't know.
Isn't that fun?
I like it.
It's real neat.
So the question I was going to ask was, if there's a large portion of Crimea that wants to join Russia, right? They think that it's a good thing. They essentially want to be annexed. Should they have that ability? And I understand that the West and NATO has a strategic desire to own Crimea because it gives them access to the Azov Sea, right? They have to control I don't remember the name of the strait, but there's a tiny little strait right there that all the ships can go in and out of. And if Russia owns both sides of it, they do have a strategic problem. So anyway, I'm going to hand the floor to you on should they be able to join Crimea, and with the understanding of strategic advantage and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, should Crimea be able to join Russia in good faith if enough of them said, yeah, we don't want to be here anymore, but were Russians and millions of Russians being funneled into Crimea after the takeover and set up their citizenship there and their residencies in order to make that vote inflated. I think that probably happened because we know Russia. We know Russia's going to do what Russia's going to do for Russia to win. And that's the cheapest way for it to do it. So sending their people in is cheaper than sending the jets in. And the jets are in there too. So they obviously are sending their people in, and they this is way earlier in the war with the carting away of the kids and to indoctrinate them into a Russian way of living. And I don't know where they are now, but that's neither here nor there. In a perfect world, should a chunk of a nation be allowed to secede in peace and then cede their sovereignty to another nation? That's a really good question. We solved it during our civil war in one way, and so I guess Ukraine would have to solve it in that way also. If Crimea said, "This is it. We're not going to be part of Ukraine anymore," and as an entire bloc said, "No, go to hell." That didn't happen. That's not happening. Russia's the one that's in there. Now we can argue that America's in Ukraine and we're both pulling strings. Okay, that's fine. But it's really cheap what we're doing in order to stop Russia. We're not. I see the face. In the grand scheme of things, we look at our military budget. It's cheap to do this versus get ourselves involved in the war, like in a hot war, right? Can we agree that this is a cheaper alternative to stop Russia than us going in with boots on the ground?
Sure, for this conversation, it is cheap. I do,
and I just want to interject real quick that with this topic, or this point on the top of mind right now, Matt, this is why I think that the United States and Ukraine should move into a business arrangement. And whether or not that is seen as exploitative, which I absolutely can see how that comes about. I think if it's a fair agreement on both ends, the Ukrainians can't access a large portion of the minerals in their country. They just don't have the infrastructure to do it. And the United States, if they were to go in, again, I'm not going to simp for like Halliburton type crap going on, but if we can come to a peaceful business arrangement where now the Americans have a reason to care about this, quite frankly, I'm not trying to be callous about it, but right now I struggle with, like, I don't like seeing people being blown up and crap. It's the same reason why I don't want Israel taking Gaza and blowing people up. I just don't like seeing innocent people getting murdered, but I think that international trade and
Darren,
business,
you're muted.
No,
I think.
No, I wanted to say, were people being conscripted? I don't
like
to watch moms holding on to their kids as they're being ripped out of their car is insane because all the young men in Ukraine are killed.
The point I was making was, I think that the solution to stopping Russia from taking Europe and creating the USSR again is these business arrangements. It is creating a financial incentive for the United States to wield our might against this encroachment. That's just my point. That's the point I was trying to make. That's why I liked this mineral deal thing. We'll get into the press conference, but I do think that it's advantageous for both sides to go into a business arrangement in this situation. One last little point here. I did bring up an article. This is the BBC, and that is that the Ukraine's Prime Minister Jens Shmyhal says a major minerals deal with the U.S. has been agreed upon. Right. This was earlier in the week, 4 days ago. Speaking
This
to
was
Ukraine,
before or after the press
this was
conference
before
of June?
the press conference heard around the world. My point was,
Okay.
the reason I brought this up is that it was implied that the press conference itself was required to sign this mineral deal. That's not the case. It was already agreed upon before the press conference occurred. Now I understand Trump was like, "See you later, dude." But yeah. All right, I'm gonna digress here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is it my turn?
Too? Yeah,
Nah.
I don't know who. Okay, all
right. Gosh. Okay, mineral deal.
Well, you were talking about how it's like a cheaper. Like we can all agree that it's a cheaper. It'd be my opinion that our military budget is insanely too high.
Yes.
And I don't think anything that has a B on it is cheap. And I don't, 171 Bs is definitely not cheap. And especially when it's just all it's doing is murdering people. It's just you're going to run out of Ukrainians to fight, and there's a billion Russians that'll fight, and they'll all be conscripted. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is not a winnable thing for either side, and for whatever reason, again, strategic, right? With was it the Black Sea?
146 million is the population of Russia. Just point that out.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask.
Yeah. I mean, all I'm saying is, like, listen, like, as a guy who just like
half of them over 60, probably.
Yeah, dude. But the thing is, like, they're conscripting. They're conscripting people over 50 in Ukraine.
Oh yeah, they're sending them to die.
It's so, dude, it is so sad and so ridiculous. And I think the only reason that it makes me so legitimately upset is because one, it was completely preventable. Just like completely preventable. Now, I'm not. Every time I say stuff like this, people call me like a Putin apologist. But like, we still have to listen. It is in our best interest to listen to other superpowers, right? I mean, it is just when people talk about foreign policy, like our foreign policy for the last 50 years has been tragic. There is no shining moment. Maybe the Berlin Wall falling, but it has been tragic, right? I mean, the Bay of Pigs, Vietnam, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom. I mean, the list goes on, and these people are up there talking about how we have to go do these things. It's like you're losing the American people, and I just wish everyone could come together and just say, listen, we need to find a better way to do this than killing off an entire country's population, or men especially, because even if it is so tough to just to kind of watch this, and then people defend like us sending all this money and all these arms and all this assistance all there, and it's doing nothing. And then when Zelensky comes here and acts like, well, Russia's got to give back all this land, it's like, no, they don't. They could have, they would have, if you had done this when Minsk 1 was around, or even Minsk 2, or in Bucharest, and said, no, we don't want to be part of NATO, or listen to Germany, or listen to the UK when they said, don't do this. Russia is going to do something serious. So it's like, this is all the thing that makes me the mad the most, I sound like a child, is that this whole thing is like, it's just so preventable. And it's so, sure, they didn't treat him very nicely in the Oval Office, but he did show up in a jog suit to the Oval to talk to the world's most formidable government. Now, you don't have to respect the man, but you have to respect the office, right? Merkel doesn't like Trump. Merkel doesn't like Trump, and Macron, who's not even a legitimate leader, showed up and was cordial to Trump because of the office, right? You don't have to like the person, but like, you still, who shows up and acts that way? Like, I mean, I watched it. Yeah, he acted like a kind of a petulant child. Like, Trump is just kind of that way regardless. But watching Zelensky acts like we owe him something. We owe you nothing. We have given you 171 billion, of which you can only find 74.
Well, it hasn't been delivered. I mean, it's been appropriated, but has it been delivered yet? I think we're muted.
You're muted, Darren.
I will send all my research right now. Yes, it has all been. And you know what? Biden did a very good job of making sure they were all grants, so they don't owe us jack diddly, which is insane. He gave our entire stockpile to Ukraine and asked for nothing in return.
That either he was absolutely agree with.
Either he's completely asleep, which we actually have evidence of him being asleep at 2:00, or like what has been going on for the last 20 years that, you know, when he said their grants and everyone's like, there's no way, like people were up in arms. There's no way they would just give this. Yeah, dude, they gave your money and weapons to a foreign government who is on the top 10 list of most corrupt places on earth.
So a new Cold War we didn't want to be a part of.
I do not want to get back to the new Cold War.
What were we talking about before here? Oh, you know what? Just for the hell of it, you brought it up.
Sure.
Zelensky's tracksuit. Is that what you called it, or jogging suit?
Either one's fine.
Okay.
Sweatpants suit.
Just for the point of making it clear, he said at the start of the war he was taking off his suits and he was wearing military garb in solidarity with his guys. And he wouldn't put the suit back on until the end of the war with Ukraine. I think that specific sweater he's wearing was given to him by a Ukrainian child, but maybe it was theater. I don't know, but that's his reason for wearing it. That's his shtick. He's also donated all of his money, I hear, to the cause. So yeah, when whoever it was asked the question, the press guy alluded that he was poor and couldn't afford a suit. Maybe he is now. Who knows? But
I would say that his wife would need to sell the Bugatti for them to be not
there.
Rich.
You go. So
she can sell the Bugatti.
But he's doing it on purpose. It's his thing. It's always been his thing. And if we're going to complain about it, Elon did the same thing last week, and nobody gave a shit. He was sitting there in his
Elon's not here asking for a couple billion more dollars to fund a war.
I think he is. Maybe it's not a war, but it's let's throw out a bunch of people. Let's remake the government in his image.
I think
Ukraine.
Yes,
Ukraine. Back to Ukraine.
Yeah, back to Ukraine. Go ahead. I have too many thoughts on cutting the government.
All right, Ukraine. All right. So I'm going to skip ahead. What would I get? What would I say is a good deal to end the war? As a pragmatist, I can say, oh, well, crap. Okay, fine. Crimea can be in Russian hands. Give us back the rest of it so it looks pretty and doesn't have these stupid carve-outs. And they may get along with it. They might say, sure, okay. What's it, Donetsk? That's mostly taken, something like that. But we got to have, for whatever it's worth, more security guarantees. I mean, obviously, those are going to go out the window anyway, so they might as well put them on paper somehow. Because he's going to ignore them. So that means he can do it. He can get the security guarantees just fine, and he'll sign it. I'm talking
when you
Putin.
Say, okay. Yeah, well, I guess to the security guarantees and him ignoring it, the U.S. doesn't have a good track record of doing any of that anyway, so... I'm not whataboutism, but I'm just saying,
we
like,
ignore
in general,
security guarantees too.
Yes. Like every time.
Yep. I agree.
Yep. Yeah, you're talking to two libertarians, dude.
Yeah, we don't have a good track record of making promises to different countries and then keeping them, i.e., Afghanistan, being one of them, i.e., Iraq. Secondly, we are not the good guys.
Only in relation to bad guys are we good guys.
Sure.
Who's the goodest of the good guys out there?
It's the worst. Yeah, I know exactly.
Who the hell knows?
It's silly, right? I mean, like, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
But we're in America, so we think we're the good guys.
And then I bet you that, like, if we were in Russia right now, we'd be like, Russia's mother Russia. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And then stupid imperialist America is trying to take us over and steal all of our and kill our life.
Take our women.
The Americans are taking our...
Middle East. Oh, the Middle East, we meddle.
I don't know.
So
I don't know
much.
why, but I'm just thinking about GoldenEye, the game, for some reason. Every time we talk about Russia like this,
I am invincible.
What's Hagrid's
I haven't played the
character's
game.
name? Hagrid's character in GoldenEye. What's his name?
Spion him.
The caviar salesman guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about this too, Matt. Is like. Luhansk, Donsk, what is it? Kherson and Zaporizhia, they're all controlled by Russia. 99% in Luhansk, 75% in Donsk, 75% in Zaporizhia. I mean, like, they're not getting
their brute force attack.
Sure. I mean, the thing is like that's just what you are. You are neighbors with a superpower, a giant superpower. It is in your best interest not to like just go ahead and piss them off. So when they had their elections and they had voted in Yanukovych and America said, we don't like him because he's pro-Russian. So the Euromaidan revolution happens, oddly enough, just weird how that just organically started.
It was also spearheaded by Nazis.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, they were legit Nazis, not
the Azovs.
Dude. Anyway,
so, but anyway, that happened, and they voted in Porto or whatever. He's got a crazy name, and he was super Western, like he was super pro-West. Then they had another election, and Zelensky was elected, and he was not as pro-Western. He ran on peace with Russia. That was after he did his belly dancing days. He ran on peace with Russia, which makes sense. It's just like Mexico and Canada, right?
Sure.
Like they don't like us very much, but it is in their best interest to then, work just like it is with us, like, back and forth. It is crazy for a country the size of Texas to give the middle finger to the people sitting above them. And so that's why this whole conflict is very confusing. I don't think that Putin's a good dude by any respect. I don't think he wants to go to Poland though. And I think that's probably why he hasn't taken Kyiv yet.
This conversation.
They tried to take Kyiv right at the beginning of the war, but they were so incompetent they got stuck on the road.
So then, what does that tell you about them going to Poland?
I agree. I think most of their fighting forces. I mean, they're being trained right now.
There's no if we're trying to be as logically consistent as possible, they're either incompetent or they're the scariest superpower in the world. And if they're the scariest superpower in the world, they could have obliterated Ukraine, and we should negotiate with them. If they're not the scariest superpower in the world, then the argument that they're going to take over Russia and then the United States and all this stuff, these arguments can't exist in the same world, in my opinion.
Well, they're the scariest superpower in the world because they're incompetent. They got all of their nukes. They got all of their red buttons, and they've been threatening it constantly because they have nothing else in their cards.
My main hat is training dogs. I like to relate things to dog training. Yes. And I like to, real quick, I just want to say that this conversation itself, I think, is a foil for what the resolution between Ukraine and Russia should actually be, which is
what we should end with is like everybody's thought. Just keep going, Scott. But
an understanding that we have to come to a pragmatic, realistic resolution. And I mean, I could sit here and let you and Darren just duke it out intellectually, right? But what would that accomplish?
I think we get along well.
Yeah, of course. I like that I'm Switzerland. It's so weird. Normally Darren's like, "Hey Scott, chill out, bro." But
you are in the middle on my screen.
Nice. So
can I put him? Can I move him? I wonder.
My point is if we just continue to let Ukraine and Russia murder each other, all that can happen is further escalation. So at the very least, we have to stop this conflict, and both sides are going to come to an agreement that they're not 100% happy with. You asked like what would get me to be like in the streets with you, and that's if at the end of this there's some kind of agreement that's just like, Russia, you can have whatever the hell you want. There's no consequence for killing all these people and invading, and you said all the terms. I'm not, honestly, like, I have no say in any of this, but that's something that would make me go, hey Trump, you're being a bad dude. Like, there needs to be an amicable solution to end this conflict.
Yeah, and I feel that's what's going to happen, though.
Completely agree.
Well, I hope not. I hope not.
Both hope not. But
you're right. He's Russia's big. They got a lot more guns and a lot more people, and they're gonna get away with part of their land grab. To not get away with any of the land grab would be the largest embarrassment they've ever experienced, I think. Sure. You know a lot more about history, Darren, than I do. So, but I think they just wouldn't be able to do that. So they would die on that field. They would just say no, and they would keep on sending money, and they would use a nuke if the alternative was leave without any of the land you grabbed.
I agree.
So
with
that
you,
will have to happen.
I do agree.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if we had done this before, if they had come to the table, if Ukraine had come to the table before, it wouldn't be this bad.
They tried a lot. There's lots of times they signed ceasefire agreements. Russia broke all of them.
The
all of this victim blaming.
The Ukrainians also broke them. I don't want to let that be forgotten, because they were bombing the Donbass region. They were killing civilians. Right. The Ukrainians also fucked up. If we can do the Excel spreadsheet of who fucked up,
who did more fuck? Okay.
But I'm just saying, both sides here have been assholes. And
who did more fuck?
Right. I
did more fuck.
In the larger context of this conversation, right? To do the Excel spreadsheet is to forget the social implications of both sides breaking their agreements, because unfortunately that gives the Russian government, Vladimir Putin, and his perspective the fuel they need to go, hey, look, we need to be invading these people, right? They're killing our people. They're sending terrorists into our country. It's kind of like the cartels on the border of Mexico. It gives the same kind of intellectual fodder to, hey, maybe we should invade Mexico. You know what I'm saying? Where
losing the high ground, I think, is what we're talking about. We've lost the high ground.
Yes, right.
And Ukraine, by doing that, has done that too.
He may not have said it the right way, but yeah, they had a good hand, or a decent hand, and now they don't. And so I just like the Minsk I agreements, right? Both sides didn't abide by that ceasefire. The Minsk II was broken by both Ukraine and Russia. They always accuse each other of breaking these things. So there was a 2020 ceasefire agreement, and Ukraine and Russian both backed forces were fighting then too. So none of this is good. None of this is good. And unfortunately, you're right. Your original statement is right. Russia will not be leaving without some of the land grab, unfortunately.
But there's no indication that they're going to stop. I mean, they did it. Was it 8 years ago? When was Crimea? 2016.
Well, they will if we. I'm saying they will if we. Like, listen, there has been plenty of times where, first off, yes, they will if we ask, and we're saying, hey, listen, this mineral deal comes with our assurances that Russia won't move any farther, right? And whether
if that happens, and if there's an actual assurance, and we get our American infrastructure in there, that Russia would risk damaging Americans, and I assume would stray against that, then I think that would be something that Zelensky would go for. But look at the history. It's like the abusive boyfriend that comes back. It keeps coming back, and I'll change. This time I mean it. I won't invade any more of your territory, except for this one little bit between these two places, so I can get the land bridge from Khmer to the other pieces.
Do you believe that America is any better?
Let me amend your analogy slightly.
That is a good question. No, not anymore.
Let me amend.
I think we too have ceded the high ground.
So you've got an abusive ex-boyfriend, and now the new judo black belt weightlifting guy with guns is the new boyfriend who has moved into that girlfriend's house. Okay, is that ex-boyfriend going to come around anymore and fuck with her? It's very
I love this analogy.
And that's what I'm saying is what the United States needs to do to actually end this conflict.
As long as it's not all of the rights, as long as it's not Ukraine gets none of the profits.
I don't want to Germany them. I don't want to World War I Germany them, because that's not how we solve
nothing.
Problems. Right. You guys are responsible, and you guys have to give us all your wealth going forward. I don't want to do that either. I just want to move into the house and go, hey, dude, stop coming around here. That's my final thought.
Totally
agree.
Yeah,
that should work.
They're gonna have to leave some of their land to the unfortunately, just like back to that. Yep. So like I agree. I think that's a perfect. There, look, we've solved the Ukrainian issue. Let's move on. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it reduces our reliance on China for the rare earth, so that is a good thing. not paying China as much is a good thing. So finding it
very good, yes,
from a friendly
or
country,
paying Russia, dude.
we like that. We don't want to be Russia either, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible that the lack of trust and the back deals always gets people screwed over.
Yeah, and the other
you've seen
part,
microcosms.
yeah, and the other part too is you never really know. I've had to read so much about Ukraine because you see like the news. Like I only subscribe to ground news. I suggest it for like anybody. It's like an AI run news where it tells you like, hey, if you lean a little right on this, you should read the left, right? Like it always has me reading the like steel manning the opposition, which I enjoy, right? So I can get. I'm not just like in a vacuum because I can't stand it. But yeah, you never really know what the truth is, right? And you never really know. It's like when this whole thing started, I was like, why would Russia do this? This doesn't make any sense. And then I started reading a little bit. I'm like, that can't be true. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the more and more you read into it, the more and more you realize we didn't have a choice as the American people or any of this. Like it was just done kind of behind closed doors, these handshake deals. And, I mean, when the last straw for me is when Blinken got up he was at the press conference and he said, Joe Biden is committed to sending every possible extra dollar we have out of the door before January. And it's like, what are we doing? Sending, you know what I mean? Like that was his, I can't remember, I actually wrote the quote down, but he was like, we're sending everything we have there. And it's like, he's saying this while like Scott's not in his house. California is, a couple months away from, or has been on fire. Was it Malibu, Maui? I can't remember which one it is. On fire. He's like, hey, we're just going to send these people money. And I don't know. From that point forward, I was like, hey, I really got to this has got to be figured out because we just can't.
Yeah.
And you're right. That deal that meeting at the White House probably should have been done behind closed doors. But I really think that Zelensky Trump is not an unvolatile person. So it's like if you say something just a little bit wrong and not.
If you rewatch the conference, he took issue with JD saying that parts of the country had been destroyed because JD was responding to a question to a reporter and Zelensky interjected. Whether or not that was needed, I'll be honest, just to clarify, I loved it, obviously, as I'm sure you could ascertain, Matt. I thought it was amazing. I like that it wasn't behind closed doors because I want people to see I want to see. I don't like bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And I just like the raw, just no nonsense crap going on. I like that. Okay. Like I can understand from an international perspective. Yeah, we need I'm just going to put that over here. And if you want to respond to that, that's fine. But if you go back and rewatch the entire 40-minute press conference, 99% of it was Trump going, we're so honored to have you. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, there were some comments made about a tracksuit or whatever, but most of it was a very polite conversation. And JD took a question from the last question of the day too, took the question from the reporter and said, Biden sucks. We're going to do actual diplomacy now, not just saying words. And we're going to kind of attempt to create an incentive for the United States to be involved. And the last batch of policymaking got most of your country destroyed. And that's when Volodymyr Zelensky was like, bro, quit talking shit. And that's basically how it happened. That doesn't mean either one's right. It's just, it turned into, I like to do judo. I haven't been in the dojo in a while, but it turned into a judo match at that point. It was more of a jiu-jitsu match, if we're being honest. And neither of them wanted to submit, and whether or not that, I'm just saying neither side was really innocent in this press conference. And from my point of view, and I really liked seeing the raw emotion happen. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. I mean, I even like just like Zelensky's posture, it didn't, not even the posture didn't look, none of it looked good. Nothing in that whole meeting, like with JD Vance, like sitting forward, like, almost like I don't know, like he wasn't sitting straight up. He didn't look relaxed, and then Zelensky was like arms folded, like kind of like a petulant child.
Can we get Zelensky an Adidas tracksuit? By the way, I think that'd be far more appropriate.
Well, the thing he's like, I'll take this off in the war's over. It's like, homie,
stuff, you know?
I don't,
anyway,
you know, it's like there totally is a good thought behind having these things behind closed doors. I do like hearing some of this stuff, but I do think some of it's for show. Obviously, they know cameras are there. Trump is kind of a showman or a pseudo showman or whatever he thinks. I mean, say what you want, but what was that show he was on? The You're Fired show?
The Apprentice.
Yeah, apparently it was just like an amazing show. I mean, like it was like the top of the charts for forever, whether or not that was Trump. But anyway,
that was the point I was trying to make with the dog training reference, was that I encounter dogs that are only aggressive because their owners will interject in every single interaction that the dog is in. So if the dog acts like you get like these tiny little chihuahuas, right? And they act like the most aggressive dog in the world to every dog and every person they meet, because the owner's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, or they keep everyone from like, you know, interacting with the dog in an appropriate way for a 6-pound chihuahua. And the point I was trying to make, if I remember correctly, was that I think that's happening a little bit with Ukraine, is that they are doing diplomacy in a way that wouldn't be happening if they had the understanding that they are dealing with a dude with like 10,000 nukes, you know, but they know that the United States up until now has been like, we'll get your back, bro. And that allows for what we in finance, we call that moral hazard, right? There's no moral hazard on Ukraine's part. Yes, they are getting killed by so there is hazard. There is moral hazard, but there's less moral hazard than there would be if they had no one on their side. They would be attempting to negotiate. They would be ceding land. They would be, you know, offering up whatever they could to stop the conflict. But the conflict has gone on because the United States has been there to basically prop up the Chihuahua. That's my point of view. I digress again.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, it would be interesting.
Go ahead, Matt.
If they do the mineral deal with the EU in exchange for them upping their support,
do it up.
I'd be on board.
I'm okay with that too, for sure. Yeah. It's so funny how these people of the EU like lecture us about. It's like, dude, we pay for what? How much of NATO sponsorship do we pay?
A lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, like way more than them. Yeah. They're lecturing us about, well, you have to help. It's like, dude, your turn. Like your turn. We don't have any more. You know what I mean? It's like it's so funny, that picture of Trump and JD Vance both going like this when Zelensky's talking. I put up on Facebook. I was like, that's the exact picture of my parents right before I went to rehab, asking them for money. Because it did. It looked like Zelensky, because it looked like a guy who had never had any type of opposition when he showed up to Washington asking for money.
You sold the car?
Yeah.
You sold everything in the house while we were out?
Like,
what are you doing?
It was an investment, Mom. No, he just looked like a guy.
My nose hole.
Right. Defend his position, and then he got offended really easily, which... Again, we have a president who also gets offended very easily. Like a little. It's funny. We went from a guy who like sleeps all day and doesn't know what satire is to a guy who, when you tell him he has tiny hands, he like loses his mind for 5 weeks. You know, it's like it's so ridiculous. But anyway, that's just like my thought. And as we kind of close here, I wanted to get to like what the solution is, but I think we all three of us came to a solid treaty, if you will, right? So, I mean, as of right now, do we agree that there's no way Russia's not going to have some of that land that they did grab?
Yeah, I think so. I think at least 50% of it's going to have to stay in Russian hands. They might have to give some of it back in order for Ukraine to save a little face. And for America to make the impression that they're getting something out of the deal. They got to have the security guarantees, which of course we know it doesn't matter. But having Americans in the country will help with the actual security guarantee. So Yeah, I think
I totally agree.
This is the only way forward. The only big problem is that we're dealing with, I'm sorry, just an awful man in our White House, and but I can set that aside and say that some of the good things could happen, maybe in spite of him, maybe not. But
Right.
I shit you not, the strings are being pulled. So there are strings on him being pulled. So whether he likes it or not.
Do you believe that most presidents have strings being pulled, or do you think it's
yes,
just specifically
but
Trump?
Are they foreign strings, or are they
Ukrainian strings?
I don't think they're Ukrainian strings. There's no money. We're the ones giving Ukraine money. How are they pulling strings on us?
Because it gets funneled back into our government and to our elected officials. Because it's a money laundering scheme.
That's right.
I mean, let's get the money out of politics then.
As most wars, dude, 1,000%. If there's someone out there that doesn't agree with it, you do need to go somewhere. That's the most. The second they reverse, what is it, Citizens United, I will be dancing naked in the streets for all to see.
Yes.
I just want to say real quick, let's make that part of Ukraine the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, and then we're good.
Okay.
That's
not a bad idea either, dude.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
it's just like like the part of WoW where like you can't. It's like Horde and Alliance can't kill each other or whatever. And then there's
of course you gotta have a passage guarantees between Crimea and whatever the hell. The Strait of whatever you said.
And that's for people with better brains,
basically.
right? But I think it's something that we can accomplish here. And if we don't want to, then Ukraine's going to get wiped off the face of the planet, and there's just like nothing. It's just going to turn into a whole show when it could have all. I guess my whole thing is it just all could have been prevented, and I did never.
You want to do last thoughts here, bro?
Yeah,
because it's getting a little long.
Last thoughts. If anyone has any,
let's let Matt go last. Let's let Matt have the last word.
Okay. If anyone has any interest in this is a wonderful book.
Nice.
There you go. Wonderful book. It's called Provoked. It's by Scott Horton of the Libertarian Institute. It is 600 pages. It's a long read, but the bottoms of these pages, those are all footnotes.
He's got 8.
Cool.
All of them. Okay. And I bought the book to kind of just support Scott Horton because, but the Kindle version, I don't know if you read Kindle or have an iPad or have a Kindle or whatever. All of the footnotes are links. They're all clickable. So if you need, and it's searchable. So it's a lot, right? So if it's like, hey, I don't really understand like the Minsk agreements, it's pages about the Minsk and with hundreds of footnotes.
It's also not a Trump-friendly book.
Very not.
It's
not at all. This dude hates Trump. He hates Biden.
Libertarians should hate Trump.
Yeah, like he hates everyone, and he just wants everyone to not die.
Right.
And it's the best literature that I have found, and it's the most detailed. And you just can't. It's very hard to negate that.
There's definitely a schism within the Libertarian Party over Trump. Just point that out. But anyway,
yes, absolutely. So my final thoughts are: I think we're absolutely right there. I think that the land grab, some of it's going to have to stay. I think that we can come to terms with. We're going to have to come to terms with that because it's just too late to not. Zelensky needs to hold an election immediately. If he wins, he wins. That's great. If he doesn't, who knows? Who knows how it goes? I just always think an election is something that's so needed just to see what the people are thinking.
If we get a ceasefire election, because right now election's basically impossible. But
yes,
we get a ceasefire
I agree.
First.
It was a snap election when he got elected, but it wasn't during wartime. So I know that it can happen in Ukraine. And again, he was not the most Western guy. But so anyway, so I agree with everyone on this panel about how we should solve this. I'm like waving a knife around. So that would be my final thoughts. Like, let's just end this killing. Let's figure out a way for some peace. Let's start putting some of this money, taking it out of these politicians' pockets and into the American infrastructure. Like, let's buy Scott a house or something. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, but you know what I'm saying? Like, instead of Zelensky's wife getting a Bugatti, why not we do something smarter? We can do something so much smarter. There's so many wonderful people in this country that deserve things that anyway, that's my final thought. I agree with everyone here.
So I want Matt to have the last word. So couple of things. One, it's been good to talk to Matt about seeing kind of the alternative perspective, the real fear that people have of Putin going in and conquering Europe. I don't think that it's a reality, but it's good to be reminded of that. So thank you for, pushing back when you have. Um, with that being said, too, I really do think that it's important to acknowledge that there's the world we want and there's the world as it is, and somewhere in the middle there is how we come to agreements amongst enemies or people that disagree with one another. So, I may have my libertarian utopia and think that everyone's gonna, just peace and love and trade with each other, and we'll have who needs a fire department because we'll have fireproof houses. That's what the market will create. I understand that that's not the reality either. So obviously my solution to this problem would be for us to be trading with each other and be talking to each other via trade. If we're buying and selling each other's goods, it means we've got to talk to each other. And that's how we create these relationships with our enemies. Again, I'm doing that in air quotes because I don't like using that term. Matt's definitely not my enemy. The Russian people aren't my enemy. The Ukrainian people aren't my enemy. So, and my political opponents in the United States are not my enemy. So that's why I'm doing air quotes here. My opponents, if you will, should be the right word. But with that being said, I really think that we need to come to some agreement internationally that doesn't escalate the conflict further, that stops the dying, that is advantageous for both sides. That means all sides, including Russia, because we don't want a World War I Russia either, right? We don't want to give their politics the ability to say, hey, we're getting fucked here. So we need to be more adversarial. We need to be more aggressive towards the West and towards the rest of the world. So my thought is, we find if Europe wants to do the mineral deal, so be it. That's fine with me. Get them in there, right? But the continuation of here's a blank check, here's some weapons, whatever you want to do is cool. I think that's got to stop on both sides. And yeah, again, thanks for coming on, Matt. It's good to talk to you again. I'm looking forward to our next conversations. Honestly, it's been a great episode. And yeah,
dude, yes, I forgot that part, Matt. I really do. Like you it sounds like we're just like overloading you with praise, or if that's how it sounds like. But the thing is, it's so difficult to get people on that are able to talk about the way that they think without being like super I get super angry, and they have no problem talking at me on Facebook. But then when it's like, hey, did you want to like maybe talk face to face, or like Scott's angry and says the F word, and it's like, okay, well, how about I just be, so I am so thankful that there are still people out there that want to have these conversations, and no joke, when this Ukrainian thing does happen, we'd love to have you back. But anyway,
or even other stuff too. Yeah. Not just Ukraine. Let's talk all the time if you're down. But anyway, sorry, Matt.
Oh yeah, I'm totally down. My last words. My definition. I think a lot of people's definitions of a compromise is when everyone walks away disappointed. So, if as long as that happens, sure, then I think it was a good compromise. It would be a good idea if Russia had some form of reparations to help rebuild the part of Ukraine that they didn't take, that is also destroyed. Just something. And in exchange for that, the lifting of some of the embargoes and some of the, whatever the heck that other word's called. You can help me out there.
Blockade.
the blockades, the trade blockades, so have something there, the little step, the Nazi step of bringing back relations. Sure, let's normalize relations, but over time and over a period of time where they prove that they are trustable and we prove that we are also trustable. We have to stop going back on our word also, because we feel like we still have the high ground, and a lot of the times we just don't anymore. We only think we do because we live here. So let's dig in, and if we make our commitments, we keep our commitments. And I agree with you, Darren. Our first commitment should be at home. I think that FEMA, for example, needs better funding and should act as the last resort insurance for these huge natural disasters, and they should cover a bunch of these houses. And if they can't cover the house, then they should cover moving you into a different location that's not, hurricane prone. As a lot of our places where we're living are just in the wrong place, and they're just too expensive to insure now.
Right.
Global warming is going to do that thing, or climate change is going to make it different locations, and we'll find that safe places are no longer safe. So FEMA should say, okay, we can't pay to rebuild your house, but we will pay you to move to a new place. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but it's I think apropos to Scott's situation, which really sucks. I wish you got your $700, and I wish it was $17,000. That would have been
right.
That would have been helped a lot. It would have helped with some groceries.
I think it's so interesting, Matt, that we are a lot closer than I always say this when we have people on that have the stones to just like talk to people who have different opinions. And this has always been my thing, is like, I am like 90% sure we're a lot closer together than if you read or watched like Fox or MSNBC. I mean, you'd think there's either Nazis walking down the road or like snowflakes are everywhere. And the reality is, it's like,
right,
we're all just trying to figure, I don't like to curse, but we're all trying to figure this shit out, right? Like everyone's trying to figure out just how to like live kind of in this time and stuff. And I appreciate you coming here, and it's so interesting that we like actually really kind of just agree on some things. So
wait, I'm sorry, did you say disagree or just agree?
Just agree. We like agree on like like when we first started about it in Ukraine, it's like, yeah, we got to right, because adults just compromise. Mm-hmm. It's just an orange guy in a tracksuit wearing guy. They both have to agree. Everyone else can agree, right? You know what I'm saying? You get a panel of these three people. Three of us can just be like, hey, listen, this is probably a good idea, but it takes these people at the top to, I don't know, figure it out. Anyway, I appreciate you coming on. I have got to get about a 30-minute break until my next interview, so don't log off. I'm going to stop this and we can chat for a second.
All right.